My name is Ellen Keenan, but everybody calls me Nellie. My brother John was a printer and he used to love his job. I remember when he was an apprentice, he would come home every day and regale us with all the stories that he had helped to set. He was really good with his letters in school and had a phenomenal memory, so this was a dream job for him. He used to love the print room. The smell of the ink, of course, and the paper. He used to talk about paper with the same love and passion as our dad did about the greyhounds. He would talk about a paper's opaqueness, which is how much printing will show on the other side, and the paper's weight, and how it refers to its thickness, and how you would use different weights for different purposes, say, light for newspapers or heavier for posters. He'd go on and on about typography, which was an art form for him. The arrangement of type involves selecting typefaces, point sizes, line spacing, line length, letter spacing, and adjusting the space between pairs of letters. Our John always used to say, there is an art in arranging type to make written language legible, readable, and appealing to the eye when displayed. He could do it all, and he was very talented. And when he finished his apprenticeship, there wasn't a prouder man in the whole of Ireland. But when the Great War began, his work changed. From doing the posters for the music halls like the Alhambra or the Grand Opera House, to government work for recruitment. And he was more than happy to do his bit, as he was exempt from the military service because he had a club foot. But I don't think our John would have made a good soldier anyway. He was gentle. And I can't imagine him being able to harm anyone, let alone kill them. But he was proud of his work. And he was glad to contribute what he could, and the men joined up in their thousands. Then the reality of war began to infiltrate our lives. John was printing the lists of the dead, the roll of honour. He started working in the newspapers and was becoming more withdrawn and stopped speaking about his work. And then came the song. The battle to end all battles in the war to end all wars. It took about a week for any news to filter back home, and when it did arrive, it was devastating and relentless. John typesetting every name, every address, every date of birth, every day, day after day of lists of the dead. He never said so. But I think he took every death so personally because he had printed the recruiting posters encouraging all these young men to go to war. He was never the same. After the armistice, I had hoped he might get better. But the reality of war was still very much around us. Limbless men, blind men, men whose minds were gone had all come home to remind us. Apart from work, John never left the house now. Around Europe there was peace, but not in Ireland. We had our own personal war to keep us supplied with the sickening headlines of death and terror. The Belfast pogroms, the Lisburn pogroms, villages like Cushendall visited by terror, and all set in type by John. After partition, the violence continued in the north. The most appalling episode in 1922 was the massacre of the McMahons. John came home that night with a paper in hand and didn't say a word. He just stared and stared at the report. Owen McMahon was a publican that lived in the Antrim Road area of Belfast. In the darkness of night during curfew, a gang of masked men went to his house and knocked on the door. Mr. McMahon came down the stairs in his nightshirt to find the men had already forced their way in. They took him, his 6 sons and his barman into the parlour and shot them one by one. One son a little boy, hid under the table and escaped the carnage. The women folk were locked in a room by themselves, and none of the murderers were ever brought to justice. The last thing he printed was the Special Powers Act. This gave the North's Minister for Home Affairs drastic powers to restrict and suspend civil liberties. It conferred wide powers to the RUC and B Specials as agents of the Minister to search, question and arrest without warrant. It gave the Minister the power to hang, flog, prohibit coroner's inquests, detain and intern without trial, as well as making new regulations without having to consult the Parliament at Stormont. Poor John. He just couldn't take it anymore.